Well, day 3 of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's state visit to the United States is underway. An official State Department lunch, discussion with leading American CEOs and a diaspora outreach are on the cards. The Prime Minister took part in a high-tech handshake event at the White House. The Indian Prime Minister held meetings with entrepreneurs, CEOs and representatives from various companies. U.S. President Joe Biden and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met senior officials and CEOs of American and Indian companies. They discussed innovation and investment in a variety of technology sectors, including AI, semiconductors and space. The Prime Minister said the coming together of technology and talent is definitely a guarantee for a bright future.
Understanding the importance of technology, the progress that America has made in the area of technology, and the youth in India, thanks to its talent, has created an identity for itself in the world. So this coming together of talent and technology, I believe this is definitely a guarantee for a bright future.
Our countries are taking innovation and cooperation to a new level in our relationship. And thanks in large part to the folks around this table. So my message today is really simple. We've got to keep it up, and we have to make sure we aim even higher. We're going to see more technological change. You've heard me say this a number of times, in the next 10 years than we saw in the last 50 years.
Following the meetings, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and Secretary of State Antony Blinken hosted a state lunch for the Prime Minister. The lunch included officials from the State Department as well. Ahead of the lunch, the U.S. Secretary and Vice President and Indian Prime Minister addressed the guests. The Indian Prime Minister raised a toast to friendship, peace and the prosperity of citizens in India and the United States. The Prime Minister praised Blinken, saying the U.S. Secretary of State had played a crucial role in strengthening ties between both nations.
Over the past several decades, the United States and India have been advancing the vision of greater interdependence, brought closer by administrations of different parties in both of our countries. Having worked for President Biden for over 20 years, I know that his belief in this partnership is long-standing, and his commitment to delivering on its promise is unwavering.
अनेक बैठकों में हिस्सा लिया, कई विषयों पर चर्चा की। इन सभी बैठकों में एक चीज कॉमन थी, सब एकमत थे कि भारत और अमेरिका के लोगों के बीच मित्रता एवं सहयोग और गहरा होना चाहिए।
After the state lunch, the Indian Prime Minister will engage with influential figures and leaders from civil society at the Kennedy Center. This will also include prominent corporate honchos and personalities. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi's final engagement will be interacting with members of the Indian diaspora and the Indo-US community, including community leaders. This is expected to take place at the Ronald Reagan Center in Washington, D.C. Well, the Indian Prime Minister was hosted for a lunch with the U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and there were a lot of agreements and partnerships that were signed during the lunch. To talk more about this, we are now being joined by James Russell. He's an Associate Professor, Department of National Security Affairs, Naval Postgraduate School of Monterey, United States. James, welcome to the broadcast. Now, the U.S. authorities have unveiled plans to introduce in-country renewable H-1B visas, aiming to simplify the H-1B visa renewal process for many Indian individuals employed in the United States on such visas. Why do you think this is important for India to enhance, that relationship between America and Indians?
Well, I I can tell you that the contributions of the Indian community to the American society are tremendous. I live out on the West Coast in Monterey, California, and I've traveled around the country a good deal over the last 4 or 5 years. And I can tell you that the Indian community is making instrumental contributions to American society across the board. And it doesn't surprise me in the least that the United States would seek to have Indians coming to the United States to participate in our politics and our society and culture. I think it's just another sign of the seriousness with which our political leadership takes this relationship.
Mm-hmm. James, the National Security Council Coordinator for Strategic Communications, John Kirby, did meet with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi yesterday, and he did issue a statement, which I'm going to read part of the statement. He says that India is already exporting security in the Indo-Pacific region and beyond, and they are contributing to the Indo-Pacific Quad. We are participating with India in the I2U2, and he thinks that people should understand that that's a multilateral arrangement for the Middle East. Why do you think it is important for India and America to cooperate in terms of security and stability of the Indo-Pacific region?
Well, I don't think there's any way around one of the central purposes of this meeting it's an acknowledgement by the United States that India is one of the most important countries on the world stage today that wields tremendous influence. The United States, of course, sees India and has historically seen, I think, India as a natural partner. We're both democracies. And there isn't a way to underestimate the challenges that we face across the Indo-Pacific involving the rise of China, and it's the assertion of its not lawful rights, for example, on various parts of the oceans out there, the territorial disputes that out there that are ongoing. And the United States has mounted a quite deliberate campaign, the Biden administration. I think you have to give them the tremendous credit for really mounting a comprehensive diplomatic effort to strengthen relationships across the region. But I would have to say that those strengthened relationships don't mean as much without full Indian participation. And I think the inclusion of India, for example, in the Quad, the inclusion of India in these various multilateral groups is of tremendous strategic significance. And they provide avenues, for example, for our respective security communities to have expanded areas for dialogue and cooperation that I think is really just at the beginning, and I think will bear much fruit in the years ahead.
James, so many delegates are saying that India and United States are going to be talking about defense cooperation, cyber space, resilient supply chains, and climate change. Do you think the Indian Prime Minister's efforts of wooing American investors to India is working?
The short answer, I think, is yes. I think that American industry, the American technological community, for example, up in Silicon Valley, they're no stranger at all to the Indian market, I can tell you that. And there's very much of a very healthy two-way street that's been ongoing between Silicon Valley and the Indians, the state of India now for quite some time. But I think that the perception, which I think is a correct one, in the United States is that the potential for this economic partnership, economic relationship is unbounded. The United States, of course, has had this extensive relationship with China. And the reality is that at the political level, and I think also within companies, some of that relationship the terms of that relationship is being rethought because of the lack of Chinese transparency. And the difficulties that companies are experiencing lately working with China. And I think India is looked upon quite correctly as a viable alternative. India is the most populous country in the world. It's a tremendous market. They have tremendous potential. So I think, again, as is the case in the security sector, that the cooperation on the economic side is only going to gather momentum as a result, in part, of meetings like this, of which I hope there are many more.
James, finally, do you think there are any benefits of this trip by the Indian Prime Minister to the United States, both for America and India?
I don't think there's any question that one of the purposes of meetings like this, and I think this is a good example of the phenomenon, is that the political symbolism of the meeting in some ways even outweighs the practical, the agreements that get signed and the sales that are made and so on and so forth. It's the political symbolism of our and the photos of our two leaders together in the White House, at the state dinner. It's President Modi speaking before the United States Congress. This is a privilege that's extended only to a very few countries. So it enhances the status of that relationship in the eyes of Americans, and I think this is quite correctly so, which is to say the symbolism of this is extremely important. And I think it goes both ways in India. I think Prime Minister Modi recognizes this as well, that in the digital age, these images matter. They're important symbols, again, of an enhanced and an increasingly important political relationship. So I don't think there's any way around that.
All right, I've been talking to James Russell. He is an associate professor, Department of National Security Affairs, Naval Postgraduate School of Monterey, United States. James, thank you very much for your inputs and for talking to WION World is One today.
My pleasure.
Well, we understand that the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has met the Amazon CEO Andrew Jassy in Washington, D.C. And for more on this, we earlier spoke to our principal diplomatic correspondent, Sidhant Sibol, on Indian Prime Minister's meeting with the Indian diaspora.
It will be also the diaspora. The Indian Prime Minister meets the diaspora at the Kennedy Center, where, of course, his focus will be to talk to diaspora, and that emphasis on the people-to-people relationship. Now, we know that entire visit has been laced with focus on the diaspora, which the Indian side and American side sees as the key component of this relationship. There are 4 million Indian American who are basically playing an important role in the community, in the policy making as well. There are several Indian Americans in the Biden administration as well. So the Indian Prime Minister has made sure that homage are given to the Indian Americans who came to America in 50s, 60s, 70s, and now, of course, playing a dynamic role in the American society. We saw the images from the South Launch of the White House. There are first images from the U.S. Capitol Hill as well, where during the address at the U.S. Congress, the diaspora were, of course, chanting patriotic slogans.
Among a range of other issues, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the U.S. President Joe Biden also discussed Pakistan. The two leaders called on Islamabad to tackle cross-border terrorism. Pakistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has responded to the joint statement issued by India and the United States, claiming that specific reference to Pakistan was unwarranted, as the country has a close counter-terrorism cooperation with the United States. Pakistan also opposed the planned transfer of advanced military technologies to India. Earlier, former Prime Minister of Pakistan Imran Khan had also reacted to the joint statement. He accused India and US of reducing Pakistan to nothing but an inciter of terrorism. Imran Khan then went on to make it a more domestic issue, where he slammed General Bajwa and the Shehbaz Sharif government of making Pakistan irrelevant at the international level. In their statement on Thursday, Biden and Modi had categorically said that Pakistan needs to ensure that their territory is not used as a launchpad for extremist attacks. These calls are not new. For years, India has accused Pakistan of proving safe harbor to terrorists. The Narendra Modi government has been clear in its messaging that for dialogue to start, Islamabad first needs to end cross-border terrorism.